As you're working with design options, you'll find that in some cases, as things start to get a little bit more complicated, you need to circle back and make changes to existing options or modify the structure of your design options. And so in this movie, I'd like to look at a few techniques that you can use to manage your design options. So I want to start with adding multiple options. So I'm in a file called Managing Options, and down here in the status bar, I'm going to click my Design Options button and go ahead and go into the Design Options dialog. Now, as you can see here, I've actually got 3 option sets already in this file. So there's the one that we created in some previous movies, and then I've got a few additional ones that we've added here. So the first thing that I wanted to make sure you understood was that you can have multiple option sets. In fact, I'm going to add another one. I'm going to click New here, select it. Let's rename it. I'm going to call this Lobby Furniture. And I will rename the primary option, call it Chairs, and then add another one and call it Sofas. So I'm going to select my Sofas option, and I'll edit the selected option. Click Close. Now, it's going to be a little difficult to add furniture in a 3D view, so I'll just jump over here to Level 1 Floor Plan, zoom in on that area, go to my Component tool, see what I have here. I've got a sofa. There's an 84-inch or a 65-inch. 84-inch ought to do the trick. And I'll add it right about there. Rotate it around with the space bar and add another one right there. Now, of course, if I go back to my 3D view, you can see the sofas that I've added to this design option, but you can see that the chairs are still there in the background. The chairs are currently part of the main model. So if I go back to the main model here, what you're going to see is the sofas disappear because they're part of an option, but the trouble is when we display that option, we're getting both. They're kind of both on top of one another. So what I want to do is have only the chairs and the chairs options and only the sofas and the sofas options. So the way that you do that is I'm going to go back to my main model. I'll select all of my chairs with the Control key. So I'm going to click my Add to Set button. And then notice that what I have here is a drop down at the top that lists all of the various sets, because now that I have multiple option sets, you have to tell it which set you're adding it to. So I'm going to choose my Lobby Furniture. And what I want to do in this case is I only want to add it to the chairs option. So by unchecking the sofa option, I remove it from there, click OK. And now you can see that when main model is active, it's showing the primary option. We talked about that in a previous movie. So the chairs display. But if I change to the sofas option, you can see now that only the sofas display instead of the chairs. So even though the default behavior for add to set is to add it to all the options in the set, you certainly don't have to do that. So you can uncheck the ones that it doesn't belong to. So let's look at another similar example. Okay, I'm going to take these columns here and look at some variations for that. So you can see in the Design Options dialog that I've already got an option called Columns. So perhaps I wanted to change out the columns here and make them round in this Round Columns option. So I'm going to choose Edit Selected. Now, when I close out of the dialog, I realize, oops, I went right to Edit Selected, but I actually have an empty option. You notice how everything's grayed out and I don't have any of the columns, and I don't have any way to select them right now. Now, I could certainly go back to main model, select them, add them to the set, but it turns out that I'm going to go to the Level 1 Floor Plan and zoom in on those columns there. There's a checkbox here on the status bar that says Active Only. What that's referring to is the actively edited design option. So right now it's showing me the objects for the round column option. And since there aren't any objects in the round columns option, I don't see anything. Everything's grayed out. Turns out I can uncheck this box. Now you want to be careful doing that, but that's going to allow me to select elements in the main model. And then that gives me access to the Add to Set button. Now notice that this time when I click it, the dialog doesn't appear, because I'm already editing the columns design option set. So it knows that, so it automatically adds the selected elements to the options within this set. And I can select the two that are here and change those to round columns. You'll see them change there. They're a little bit bold, but you can see the superimposed gray ones underneath. I'm going to go back to the main model. So the main model still shows the square columns, but now if I go to the round columns option, you can see that we have round columns in their place. So it's just another way of getting to the same place that we've seen before. Sometimes you go into editing the design option too quickly and realize that you forgot to add something, and that can be an alternative way to do it. Now let's look at one more sort of management feature that you want to kind of have in the back of your mind here. If you've been using Revit for a while, you've seen error dialogues. They're a common occurrence. What I want to do is take these two doors here, and I want to add them to an option set that I already have on my list for the lobby doors. Now, if I select the two doors and I choose Add to Set, open up the list here, pick lobby doors, click OK, it's going to generate an error. Now, this is one of those dreaded cannot be ignored errors in Revit that only has the cancel button. So again, you've probably seen some of these before. So what this error is telling me is I can't add inserts like doors or windows without also adding their hosts. The wall can't stay in the main model and host a door that's in an option. So what I have to do here, unfortunately, is click Cancel. I have to select these again, but I also have to select their host wall. If I do that and choose Add to Set, it will add it without any error. And then I could go in and edit the different options and change out what kinds of doors I want. So there's a lot of little techniques and strategies that you might find yourself needing to use when you're working in design options, but probably the most important undercurrent to keep in mind with all of the techniques that I've shown you here is pay close attention to whether or not you're editing one of your options or whether you're in the main model, and also which objects have been added to each. If you do that, it'll be a lot more comfortable working in the various design options tools.